if you look at the summary, our receipts are 240, our expenditure 292, our reserves are 50, and that left us with a balancing account of -1036, which is pretty close to where. And of course, we've also got to put into reserves 5,657 for retention for the fee that we're holding back. Okay, so that goes into reserves, so it's not available finance to us, it's actually in reserves for special, when it comes due at the end of the year. So that's the building rate. Any questions on that? That's the final figure, basically.
All done and dusted.
And
I think worth it. Having used the shop a lot since it's been open.
So. I know we have said this, but I know women just put in a shitload of work. It's been very easy to just get out of control. We haven't had some.
it has been challenging, but I've learned a lot from it as well, which is amazing. Considering, and I, to be honest, I've consulted on quite a few occasions with other clerks, other councils. Got the clerks forum we had here before Christmas. All those things have all been useful as well to share our experiences. The great thing from my point of view is when we did the shop opening in December, to see the actual result of it, and there it is. It was really made the whole thing feel worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing I just wanted to share with you, the budget. The one that when we discussed the precept and the budget back in November, we had two meetings. We had a budget discussion in November, and we agreed on a budget, and then in December we agreed on the precept. Now the budget that we agreed was 65,759. That was in November, and we set a precept of 68,000, and that still remains. That's exactly what it shows on these budget sheets. I will circulate it, which is just as well, because I wasn't quite sure whether the overhead, I didn't know it wasn't going to work, so the fact they printed it was rather fortuitous. It's just for your reference, really, so you can look. I mean, I'm not suggesting you read it chapter and verse now, but you can see from it the clear, as we've amalgamated the numbers now, the numbers look quite large now, because we've got the normal budget and the shop building budget as well together.
It is very cold.
Well, it is on, but it's not terribly warm.
I think the temperature is set to 13.
Oh,
No, it said 19. It's 23.
let's have Caribbean.
Take the lights down.
Yeah, it has got. It's really tasty stuff. Yeah.
So if you look at the income budget, I mean, say the point is going through the whole lot because we discussed it back in November when we set the budget, but you can see now that the figures are amalgamated, and the shop figures are now not separated out, they're actually now totally amalgamated with it. And what you see at the end of the piece, the second sheet there, we have a total budget of everything, 341, 323 up to December, and there's some other bits and pieces since then. And so therefore the end forecast was 344 to the end of March. So until we get to that period at the end of March, it's going to be kind of, the forecast is a little bit sort of finger in the air job at the moment. But I'm aware of what costs we've got outstanding. So the forecast should be reasonably accurate. But just for your records really on that one.
Colin.
Are Steve Pinn's costs in here?
They're in the forecast, but they're not actually in the actuals because, of course, that's come to today. So they will obviously come under the January payments, so that they will go into the forecasted figure, as indeed Holly and Steers will as well. Although, as you can see in the shop budget, Holly and Steers figures are included in that. So, but if you read through it and there's any questions you want to ask, you can always tap me an email or whatever. There's something you're not too clear about. And then really probably the most important thing in some ways is the post-building, where we are actually with our finances, cash in other words, rather than budgets. And again, if you could just pass that around. This is really for your records more than anything else, so you've got something to grasp with. What you'll see on here, what you'll see on here is our current banking reserves as of January the 1st, 2025. You'll see we have current reserves 41,933 and our savings reserve of 30,177. And that of course takes account the fact we've made all of our payments for the shop and so on and so forth. I'm anticipating our forecast expenditure from January to March of 14,000, which splits it up in terms of fixed reserves and what we call our operational reserves. And the fixed reserves are listed down the left-hand side: Tony Hill, Election Fund, Knuckle Trust, SIL funding. This is the new SIL funding. Play Equipment Reserve Fund for the up to the end of this year. Build Project Retention Fund, Go Funding donations, and Class Security. And all of that totals 30,000. Now, of that 30,000, the new play equipment, of course, is going to take a chunk of that, and so the reserves figure will drop significantly, but it won't change our operational fund. We'll still have the operational funds to live on. And again, if you just want to take these away, and the bank account from Scribe on page 2, that tallies with my figure. It says hopefully. Current figure 4193323, which is the figure I've got at the very top there. That comes off the Scribe, and the bank statement summary up to today, actually, in fact, it's actually to the 31st of December, also shows the same figures. So everything ties in, everything balances, and everything, in order to look at it, I think they find that all in order. And I hope they do when it comes to the external audit. But it's really more for your records than anything else, really, rather than detailed. So if there's anything you want to ask me, then just ping me an email or whatever, and I'll try and answer it once you've had a chance to look through it. Questions on that?
So all those that are, on the reserve listing,
Yeah.
all those that are saying allocated
Yes.
are in that 17,000,
Yes.
which is going to.
Yes.
So our reserves are election fund, build project, and
That's right.
class.
So there'll only be three statutory reserves in that until we get another grant or whatever might come along. Okay. So yeah, so the next thing is the local grant thing I sent out to you a couple of days ago with the list of 7 people who have requested grant support.
Did you send that on the
I sent it on your iPad.
iPad?
Yeah.
I've seen that actually.
I think it only came out yesterday.
It only came out yesterday, yeah. But we'll just go through them briefly. There were 7, as I say, which is more than we've had in the past. Citizens Advice Somerset, none of these incidentally have any amounts attached to them. So nobody specifically asked for £200 or £50 or whatever. They were just open-ended. Citizens Somerset, Advice Somerset, which we've always given to in the past, they've now reorganised themselves into a slightly new format. We've got one from Re-Engage, who we've also granted previously. I think in the last 2 years we've granted to Re-Engage. This is a local organisation.
I don't know who Re-Engage are. What do they do?
They look after, they do support people, elderly people living alone
Oh, right,
in the
okay.
community. So they try and arrange sort of
And that's
together
in our
social
area.
events
In our
in our area. Yeah. Meet and Eat, quite a long-standing one, I think. Rosemary Keel organises Meet and Eat. There, they don't have their own bank accounts. Which initially posed me a slight problem because that's one of the qualifications. You have to have an organisational bank account. But if you're minded, we've come across another way of doing it, which is to pay something to the parish hall for their room hire, which is effectively the same thing. So if we make a contribution to them, we pay it to the parish hall, so they wouldn't have to pay it in the future for, and this is assuming the parish hall will be happy to do it that way, and I don't know.
Without speaking to the parish, I can't, as long as they get paid by somebody for someone hiring, I don't think they're going to be too upset.
Then we've got Samaritans of Western-super-Mare, who I've had contact with in the last few days with Joe, the director there. They, of course, have been involved in the signage for the.
Is that now up?
It's not up at the moment, but they are talking to Network Rail apparently. So, and apparently Network Rail are financing it, which is good. Again, Samaritans can be thanked for that because I think they negotiated something with Network Rail on our behalf there. So they've come to us for a grant. The community shop at Brent Knoll, they're asking for some support for their blinds for the shop. They want to put the lines into their
Yeah,
shop.
so I'm familiar with this. So where we were setting up some of the items of food, the sun isn't affecting it so much. It's going straight into the cakes and bakery, so it means that things would turn quicker. So I think
They put the blinds in. They're there.
have they?
Yeah.
I think, because again, it came up at the surgery that that's a temporary solution.
Oh, well,
That they're only, that they won't, they're not very durable that they put there, but at least it'll do it in the meantime, but they need something a bit more.
Right, okay.
And then the final one, which was probably one, again, which I had a conversation with Andrew Manning, he's doing a 3,000-mile bike ride in the USA in support of Parkinson's, cure Parkinson's. I did explain to him that, again, we can't make donations to individuals, but the council might be minded to make a donation to the actual charity,
Yes.
of which apparently there are some people in the village who are suffering Parkinson's. So any support, obviously, he would welcome. So they're the seven organisations.
Say 6.
Yeah, there is only 6.
Can I-
Is there only 6? Is it? Oh, right, okay. Why did I think it was 6?
Does our what happened to the money that was in the Brent Knoll Reserve Fund? Where did we move that to?
I think it got absorbed into our charity fund.
So there's a
It's
charity
a charity fund.
fund, is there? Is that on top of?
We've got Brent Knoll Charities, which was set up many years ago, and which you may remember we had great problems accessing because no one could get access to it. It's now all set up and it's all carrying on. I get statements regularly from them. There's about 1,700 quid in there, I think.
Okay.
We haven't used any of it for many years, not since I've been clerk anyway.
So okay, so we could. What I'm getting round to is we've got that funds that we could look at, and we've also got the money that is
1,450.
other grants here that is available for us.
Yeah. On paper.
Of which we spent 250 of it.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
So 1,200 quid.
Yeah. I mean, we normally give about 100 quid to citizens' advice, don't we? I think we give to meet and greet. Certainly Samaritans, from what you've said, is important. Engage, do we normally give to that as well?
We have done for the last 2 years, actually.
How much should we give them to?
I think the first year, I think we was quite generous. I think it was 250 the first year. I think we dropped it back last year because we had an application last year from the Dorset and Somerset. Which we haven't had this year. So,
I was going to say, didn't we last year say this is the amount? We set an amount and split that between.
We did.
Yeah.
It was about £500 or something, wasn't it?
I think it was slightly more than that.
Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
We
last
split
year.
that between.
Several.
Because don't you think we ought to decide this is the amount that we can afford to
Well, we've got
dish out?
we've got £1,700 in our charity.
Yes, I know, but I was just thinking, do we got to actually dish all of that out now?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going there. No, I'm not. No, what I'm hopefully working around is to make some suggestions of proposals as where we could go. But I would like to support Andy Manning in particular, because I think they're going to run a big fundraiser in the village, and he's already started his GoFundMe. And if we could give something to, as you rightly say, Owen, care for Parkinson's or Parkinson cure or whatever it's called, I think that would be a good gesture to support, because he's self-funding this
Yes.
trip himself, which is considerable part of accounts. So, in my suggestion, £100 to citizens' advice, engage, what?
I would like
100,
yeah.
100, meet and greet.
What do they normally do?
Well, they're asking.
They're asking for
They're
£240.
as if we donate, if we book some of their
That's been paying for basically a year's worth of, I mean, if you did the 100, if you did it the same as the others, £100 in effect would pay for 4 of their sessions during the year.
where if we did 120, it's 6 months.
How many
So-
go? Is it well attended?
From what I understand, it's about, it ranges from I think about a dozen to 16, that sort of number of people. It's generally